Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We are EBS, your experienced technology partner for over 45 years. We specialize in the deployment of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, managed services and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. I am Darren Tolley and I am one of the account managers here at EBS. Today we are joined by Phocas, who we partner with to help you make the most of your Sage data. This is the third of 3 webinars delivered together, and today we're focusing on Phocas Budgeting and Forecasting. At the end of last year, we covered Phocas Analytics and financial statements, and the recordings are on our YouTube channel. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Daniel Cuthieu and Pete Bushell, who will take us through how Phocas Budgeting and Forecasting works. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make this available to you in the next few days. There are lots of recordings on our YouTube channel. Remember to hit subscribe to receive notifications when we load new videos. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session. But without further ado, I will pass you over to Daniel. Morning, Daniel.
Morning, Darren. Thank you very much for having us along today, as you say, for the last of the 3 that we've been conducting. Over the course of the last few months, we've been walking through the various solutions that we have on offer here at Phocas. And so from our sort of beginnings as a BI provider and helping people really drill down and interrogate and analyze their data, we've moved over the last couple of years into empowering you with your financial statements and budget and forecasting. So the agenda for today and the things that we're going to cover, we're going to have a look at the common challenges of spreadsheet-based budgeting, the signs that your business's budget has outgrown spreadsheets, how to improve the accuracy of your budgets and easily comparing forecasts to actual, the complexities of cash forecasting and approaches to overcome them, and the dynamic forecasting for the whole business to efficiently plan going forward. So first of all, I would imagine a lot of these are probably quite familiar to you in your organizations currently. What are the challenges of using spreadsheets for budgeting purposes? Well, if it's not just data integrity, it's version control. Are you currently operating on version number 2 or version number 45? It's important to ensure that the entire business understands exactly which one they're operating on, and using spreadsheets can be challenging to do that. There is a series of complexity associated with it, and of course, then that sharing aspect with collaboration all leads to that security risk and the inability to scale it moving forward. Lastly, the chances are you've probably got some dependency on knowledge, and there's probably going to be 1 or 2 individuals who really know how to use that spreadsheet, and everyone else is relying on them to do a lot of the work. And these are the signs that you've normally outgrown it. So are there frequent errors in there? Is there complexities in your budgeting? Do you have collaboration challenges? Is it reporting that's proving to be particularly difficult? And of course, the other ones associated with that is the limited access to real-time data, huge security control concerns around that. And again, that dependency on those key individuals. So what we're looking to do is try and empower the entire team, as opposed to just having those 1 or 2 people within the organizations who really understand Excel well. We want to make sure that we can empower everyone so that there is less dependency on 1 or 2 key people. So we're Phocas, and we want to make you feel good about your data. And Phocas at a glance, those who haven't come across us previously, and I know a few of you are already our existing customers, we've got about 2,800 customers globally now, of which there's over 200 Sage customers, the majority of which are in the UK. And we've got over 8 different locations, and what we're particularly proud of is our customer retention rate at 97%. Now, it doesn't actually matter where the data is coming from, and whilst today we're talking about Sage and Sage 200 predominantly, it could be from X3, 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 300 intact. The opportunity is endless there. And it doesn't matter if your business has multiple entities with multiple different data sources outside of the Sage ecosystem. So for example, if you've got an organization which is operating on NetSuite, Epical, or the various other systems, we can help you bring that all together to make it really quick and easy to understand what's going on within your group of companies and how you can plan moving forward. And you can see then we expand across the various different business units within your organization, whether it's empowering the CEO and the board with informed information, which they can then confidently use to predict and move the business forward in the right direction, giving the CFO access to the information they need, or allowing finance, sales, and operations to make those key business decisions that will ensure success is guaranteed. And what we want to do as well is then allow you to be able to compare that information and overlay it on your business intelligence information. So we've got the 2 the Venn diagram here of the business intelligence and the financial planning and analysis piece coming together. And when you merge them together, getting access to all that information and being able to compare and contrast it ensures that you can plan better moving forward. And it doesn't matter which business unit we're talking about. As we said, finance being the key one, but of course, sales, purchasing, and headcount all find access to that information incredibly beneficial to ensure then that the business is moving in the right direction and using their resources efficiently. And how do we do it? Well, currently, your data's in an ERP or various other systems, perhaps it's in an Excel spreadsheet. And we're going through a process where we're going to gather that data and then we're going to sort it into a coherent approach where we can start bringing it into Phocas in the arranged format and allow you to then present it visually so that everyone can understand exactly where you're going, what the current position is, and easily understand and digest that information with the use of a story. And through Phocas as well, you can then drill down. So you start to spot things that are being represented within those visual pieces. You want to drill down and understand exactly what's causing that particular root problem. And that allows you to do that in our grid function, which I'm sure we'll cover off in our demonstration. Now, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, but the common business planning challenges associated with Sage. Sage is an excellent system and it's good for the majority of the businesses out there that are at that sort of SME scale. But at some point, there's going to be some areas where you'd like to do something a little bit different, or you'd like to have multiple iterations of a budget or multiple iterations of your P&L or whatever else it might be. Now, Sage itself can be quite difficult to get that data out, and especially then have those different versions of those visual aspects to show. So we do that incredibly easily and quickly. And then what we also like to do as well is create those dynamic dashboards, those dynamic reporting. So instead of being that static piece that you create on the Sage, you can then start to use it in a separate environment within Phocas without worrying that you're going to impact or change the underlying data which is stored within your Sage environment. Of course, then access is limited to selected gatekeepers. You want to keep Sage controlled. You want to make sure that not everyone across the business has got access to it, only those key individuals. Whereas Phocas, because they can't corrupt, they can't change that underlying data source, they're just viewing it from that perspective. It's a lot easier, it's a lot more security conscious, and therefore people are going to be more empowered by providing it to the wider business unit. And I'm sure you're familiar with this as well, with the traditional financial reporting process where you start to go through that idea, you're going to go through the process of actually generating it. So you're going to be downloading those CSVs, cutting and pasting, correcting it, manipulating the data, putting it in the format that's useful, sharing it with individuals across the line of business or department heads. You're going to go back to the drawing board because something's not going to be quite right. You're going to recreate that spreadsheet again. You're on version 2. And as I mentioned earlier, you could get up to version 22 or 42. And ensuring that everyone has the same information, they're all on the same page is really critical. And within that traditional model, it can be incredibly easy to get lost and have different departments using different versions, which then adds additional workload to your finance team. And that's something we're looking to try and avoid. And that's where the new or more traditional versions come in as well. So whilst you've got that line of reporting, the various different business units and heads coming through the CFO to the financial control and the bookkeeping piece, being able to empower everyone and giving everyone access to that information is truly key. Because when you've got this single line of reporting and the single line of information being passed through, it means that those individuals that are actually wanting to make those decisions moving forward and direct the business in the right way, they don't have the power and don't have the confidence to be able to do so. And the modern approach is using Phocas at the core. So we're sucking in that information, that data from the various different ERP or data sources, and then sharing it centrally. So the bookkeeper, the financial controller, CFO, as well as the CEO, sales manager, COO, all have access. It's all collaborative, it's linear, and they can see the various different pieces that are being shared with them within that security control model to ensure that they're getting the right information at the right time. And the data can be pulled as frequently or as infrequently as required. So as we go through that sort of initial setup and process, we can show people how to have, let's say, sales data pulled more frequently towards the end of a month period, or financial data going through it a more regular period than they would do mid-month. And that's really key then to allow people to be able to go through and make their own dashboards so they can understand exactly what the data and impact is upon their particular business units and operation. So Phocas Budgeting and Forecasting is a way to be able to create budgets in a way that you would like. Now, we do have pre-built budget styles, which are simple, as well as those that are all the way down to the complex level. So it really does depend on your operation and what you're looking to achieve through that process. We can connect that operational sales inventory data to serve budgets, and we can create scenarios and forecasts as well. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail. We've got secure workflows that enable you to move faster through the process. Secure input and feedback and improves that company-wide accountability. So you can send lines out to individual business units, ask them to collaborate and work towards your master budget, but equally ask them to put in various notes associated with the information or data or numbers that they're going to be putting in there. And it makes that regular reforecasting easier. And the majority of businesses out there in the UK are not reforecasting as often as they really should be. You can go down to as frequently as you wish to. And I know that various companies since adopting this are now doing it on a monthly basis. And being able to do that means that you can be more dynamic and you can move quickly in response to changes in the economic form. So if your business is going to face certain challenges in relation to, let's say, competitors in certain areas, you can reforecast, you can identify areas where there's more opportunities and reassign your resources more efficiently to ensure you get the best results. And of course, you want to stay on top of your cash position with the three-way forecasting that syncs automatically. And you won't be alone. You know, there's over 200 Sage users worldwide. They're focused. There are many within EBS already. So I'm sure there are some names on here that you might recognize. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you want to speak to anyone, we can always ask one of our existing customers if they'd be happy to be a reference site. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you about how they're using it and what changes it's made to their organization. That's enough for me now. I'm going to hand over to Pete and he will go through the demonstration for you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Daniel. Appreciate that. So just to give everyone an introduction to myself, my name's Pete and I'm a technical pre-sales consultant at Phocas. I've been here 6 years now, so got lots of experience with implementing the budgets and forecast module with various different incarnations of Sage. Also got a lot of experience around hearing the issues and the problems and the hurdles that various businesses are trying to jump over and just helping explain and demonstrate how the budgets and forecast module can help solve those problems. So what I'd like to do today is focus primarily on the BF module, but in order to use that, there is a kind of a prerequisite that we do have your data somewhere within Phocas first. So that might be as a financial statement using our financial statements module. So we've got your general ledger data in there along with your chart of accounts. Or as an alternative source, we have your operational data in there as well. So whether that's your sales invoices, your stock on hand, your purchase orders, as long as that data is somewhere within Phocas using our core analytics feature, we can then drive our budgets, our forecasts, and our plans off the back of that data. So let me just jump into our demonstration environment very quickly. And we'll take a deeper dive through the product and hopefully give you a flavor of exactly how we can use the BF module to help plan and structure how your budgeting and forecasting processes look like. So in front of us now, we have the financial statements module. So this is one route into the budgets and forecasting that we can achieve within Phocas. So if you want to plan against a profit and loss statement, against a balance sheet, or maybe you want to do some cash flow forecasting, first thing we're going to need is that data somewhere within Phocas. And that's exactly what the financial statements module is there to do. The idea is we can bring that data into Phocas and then start slicing and dicing that data in front of us. So within here, you can see we've got a breakdown of the individual categories within that profit and loss statement. And we've got the account level as well within here. We're currently looking at the current 12 months, the previous, and most important of all, you can see we've also brought in a budget against those. And then just to the right there, you can see very clear we've got a variance against that. So using this financial statements tool, you can very easily slice and dice that data. So if you wanted to break it down into a cost center or into a company or even to a branch, that functionality is available within here. You very simply and quickly take a look at that profit and loss statement and break it down within a couple of clicks. So you can see exactly what that contribution is by branch, by cost center, by sub-ledger type, by region, for example. So that data that we're looking at within here, you can see, as I mentioned previously, we have a current, a previous, and a budget stream along the top. But the idea with the BF module is that once you've created a budget or a forecast, you can then publish that directly back into this view to then start analyzing that data. So within here, as you can see, I've already got a budget sat there. But once I've published a budget within that BF module, I could also have a forecast within here. I could have a 6+6 or an 8+4 reforecast. Or I might want to model a particular scenario where we're adding a warehouse or changing how we're collecting cash from our customers. Or maybe I just want an optimistic budget for the next year. I just want to bump those figures up by 10% and then see how that's going to impact on our current actuals that are currently in versus our previous versus that budget stream. So within here to do that, that's a very simple process. After it's been published, you simply select the item within that stream, and then that's very quickly added into that view. And then you can slice and dice that data within here as you might expect. Now that's great to bring that data in. The other thing you've got to hand within Phocas is that ability to then go and visualize that information that we're pulling in. So we've got our actuals, we've got our previous, we've got our current budget for the year. We've also got a rolling forecast too. So within here now, what I can do is just very quickly jump into the chart view mode, and it will show me exactly what that forecast or what that budget is currently looking like. So what we're selecting on the left-hand side here will then be previewed on the right. So for example, let's go and look at wages as a percentage of revenue. And then that brings that in, and we can see the forecast and the budget trends within there. Because Phocas is primarily self-service, the idea is that non-technical users with a couple of hours worth of training can then start building out these views and adding them to dashboards as they see fit. So within here, we might want to look at a bullet chart. There's a gauge, there's a pie chart, there's a waterfall, and then you've got these features within here just to help configure that data and change how that's being presented back to the user. So once you're happy with that, simply add that to a dashboard. And I won't go into too much detail around this, but you have this other layer within Phocas that then allows you to present that data back to other users. So whether that's financial data or operational, we can build out, change these dashboards within here, shape and mold them into a workspace that we can then share with the rest of the business to feed them or prescribe them to those sort of KPIs and metrics that they need to be monitoring. So this doesn't just have to be financials. It can also be the budget and the forecast that's coming in against that too. So that's how we kind of present the data and how we can analyze it after that budget or after that forecast has been published. But how do we actually create that budget in the first place? Well, down the left-hand side here, what you'll see is the financial statements module I'm currently in, but we also have the budgets and forecast module just sat alongside it. Now that homepage looks something like this. So this is where we contain and manage, share, and collaborate those plans with the other users in the business. So within here, we've got a mixture of both budgets, 197 of them, and 62 forecasts alongside that. So within here, at any point, we can publish those back into our financial data, or we can also publish it back into our operational data as well. So within here, what I'm going to do is very quickly create a budget for you, just to show you how simple that process is. So within here, the first option we've got is to indicate whether or not we want to create a financial budget, which is the one we've just shown you, or we could also create an operational budget too. So by operational, I mean that sales or purchasing data that we've got sat somewhere within Phocas. So just as a quick example of that, our core analytics module could take that data, that sales invoices, stock on hand, goods and received notes that you've currently got sat within Sage, put those into Phocas, and then use this as the basis to then go and budget and forecast against. So rather than doing it against a cost center or a department within our financial statements, we could quite easily budget against a customer, sales rep, territory, or all the way down to individual SKU or product line code too, or maybe a combination of all of those as a hierarchy as well. So we can approach that from the top-down view or split it down into the lowest level that we'd like to contribute towards that budget. So for now, what I'm going to do is create a financial budget. We then put into the next stage of the budget creation. So this is a kind of a three-step process. First step is just to give that budget a name. So let's call that EBS budget. And within here, we can take a pick of what statement we want to budget from. So that very simple that very simple financial statement view I showed you earlier on of profit and loss, that's kind of a standard breakdown of operating expenses, cost of sales and revenue. There's no reason why you couldn't also structure that in different ways within the financial statements module. So within here, you might want to look at it as a statistical stream, or maybe as an operational profit and loss, for example. And then from there, once you've got that structure, you can then budget based on that categorization and that mapping of those accounts. So then here, we could budget against a sundry revenue, a vehicle expense, or maybe a professional fee, for example. But for now, I'm going to keep it simple and use that standard revenue, operating expenses, cost of goods sold kind of structure that we've got within our P&L. The next step is then to pick out what period you'd like to budget against. And it's worth mentioning within here, you could go right down into week budgeting for the current quarter. You could do a yearly budget for the next 6 years. Or, classic example, you might just want to do a monthly budget for the next 12 months. Now, once we've created that budget, it's also worth mentioning you can come back into here and expand it out. So once you've got that 12-month budget right up until December 25, go through, create that budget. Once you get ready to do your budget for the next year, you could quite easily spread that out and extend it out into 2026 if you wanted to. Or you can simply just go and create a brand new budget. Entirely up to you. Next step is to indicate whether or not we want to pre-populate that budget stream with the data that we've already got within our actuals. So in this case, I am going to pre-populate it. You might want to start from zeros. You've also got that option within here too, if you just wanted to do a simple flat top level down estimate of what that budget looks like, rather than basing it on the current actuals. Next step, and the final step within here, is then to just give this a little bit of structure, really. So at the moment, if I publish this, we'd be doing a completely top-down budget. So we'd be budgeting right at the top level and just entering in those figures right at account level within, say, for example, revenue. Now, it might be you want to then start sharing this budget with other users, give it a bit more sort of granular access, a bit more hierarchy, a bit more structure to how you're budgeting, and grouping those items together. So within here, what we can do is add in different levels to this budget. So within here, I could budget by a country, could budget by a branch or a cost center, or I could also do a combination of those. So it might be I've got 16 different subsidiaries. So within those individual companies, I then got a different location or a territory. I've then got a different branch within there, and then I might want to then budget by cost center, for example. As long as those dimensions and that data is available somewhere within your Sage system, we can bring those into Phocas, and then you can structure your budget in that way. But for now, I'm just going to keep things simple with a single entity here, a single level. I'm just going to pick on country. So that's the budget configured. I click Save and Finish. Phocas goes and grabs all that actual data. It then structures it in the way that we just told it, and then gives us that monthly view that we asked for. So hopefully, looking at this, if I just expand out, let's say, for example, operating expenses, within here, you can see we've got that breakdown of country. And breakdown again, you can see we've now got that level right down to the accounts. So hopefully this has given you a warm, fuzzy feeling, and that you've already used Excel probably for a lot of your budgeting and forecasting processes. What we've tried to do here is try and sort of lean on some of that muscle memory you've already got. Keep things simple and familiar. So within here, that cell entry that you're entering against each of your budgets, against those accounts, is very much just click on a cell or click and drag or copy forward within here. One of the key differences is if I wanted to change that electricity budget for January 2025 for the upcoming year, within here, if I thought that was going to be £3,000, once I've entered that, it turns blue to show me that I have made a change within here. And we've also got a cell history being maintained within here too. So any changes that any user makes within here, we can quite easily revert to, or just view, or also view inline comments against that. Just to give a bit of context to say, well, why did I change that to £3,000? What was the driving reason behind it? So you can have that conversation with the user that changed that if need be. There are also lots of tools within here that will just help expedite that process of entering in the budget. So within here, if I just wanted to take that 3,000, copy it forward and use that for all the months, you can see that then flatlines that spark line there to show that's going to be a level figure. Or it might be I just want to change that to 4,000 and just copy forward within there. So we've got these tools within here just to help that process speed up a bit. Once you're used to it, budgets will be a breeze and you'll be able to enter these budgets figures very quickly. Now, one of the other key features within here is that as we're entering this data, I'm purely doing it as the budget owner. So I've got control over the figures currently being entered within here. But if I wanted to share that out and collaborate with other users, that's a really simple process too as well. So maybe I'm not the expert on bank charges. No, I simply click on baseline, click on assign, and I pick a user from my current set of licensed users. So in this case, I'm going to pick on branch manager, and then that's assigned out to them. That line then turns white to indicate it's not yellow, so I can't edit it. And the branch manager will then get an alert within their inbox. The task number will bump up to 1, and then they can jump into this view at any point and then enter those figures. And again, as they're doing that, there'll be an audit track of exactly what date has changed and when. It also might be that that branch manager hasn't really got a firm enough fix on what those figures look like. So within here, that user could also then go and assign it out to an additional user if they wanted to, or at any point as the budget owner, I can simply assign and take control of that back as well. So lots of different workflow tools within here really to help the rest of the business feel part of that budgeting and that forecasting process. So this is a very simple unpopulated budget that we're looking at here. Let's just flick across into one that's a bit more weathered and has been used a bit more. So same sort of structure. Now within here, this hopefully gives you a bit of a picture of what a typical budget, a live budget would look like within the business. So as you can see, we've got some of these lines assigned out. And at any point, if I wanted to, I'll just simply right click on here, go and take a look at that workflow history. And within here, it's got that list of who's been assigned out what and when. So this just gives you peace of mind that you know who's contributed towards those figures you're looking at, when it was changed, and any commentary that goes in alongside it. And that commentary is indicated within here by a little purple triangle there. So if I just hover over that, that will tell me the comments that are associated with that individual cell, just to give that a bit of context as well. So those two tools kind of form the base of the budget input and the management process. What we've also got tools within here to do are to use the figures that we've already got within Phocas to then kind of base the figures that we're entering in for the upcoming year. So by that I mean, let's just say, for example, I want to go and look at legal fees. Within here, what I can do is click on that comparison row just there. Within here, you can see I've got my actuals stream within here. That shows it in line with the figures that I've just entered for the budget. But what I've also done is I've previously published a pre-COVID budget, brought that in as a comparison as well. And I've also published a budget from last year. So within here, you've got control over which comparisons that you show within here. You might just want to have one. You could have 50 within here that shows you that comparison against an optimistic budget or maybe a pessimistic budget for an upcoming year. But within here, we can see that percentage difference from there as well that we're sort of tracking against. So as we're changing the figures within here, you can see those percentages show that that figure is actually 25.1% down against that pre-COVID figure. So this is great for using it as sort of a yardstick to then sort of help enter in those budget figures for the upcoming year. Now, what we can also do within here is lean on those figures that we're pulling in as a comparison and then use those to then populate the data for the upcoming budget rather than just simply manually editing and adding them within here. So if I click on spread, what we're going to see here is an ability to do a couple of things. The first one is to enter in a single value for that upcoming year. Let's go and add in £900,000. So within here, I've got options to either spread that evenly, break it down into those 12 months, one at a time, or I could base it on the data that I've already entered within here. So I've entered in 2,000 one month, 1,000 another. It will then gauge and break that down into those sort of patterns. I could also base it on the actuals as well. So those sort of spark lines that you see against those previous figures, I could then have that based on the actuals, but follow that 900,000 and break it down month by month. Or I could do that by the pre-COVID budget or by the budget last year. Or if I've entered in a working calendar, a working week, and define that as either a 544 or 545, for example, within here, I could then base that monthly budget on working days that are available within each of those months. So what I hope this shows is there's no going back into Excel to try and figure out that lookup or that formula to determine what each of those calculations should look like. These are all available to the rest of your users as a drop down to very quickly bring into line what those budget figures should look like. So within here, let's go and base this on actuals, click apply. If I then go and expand out the comparison row, what you'll see is that figure there, that spark line there that shows the pattern is now well in line with the one just beneath it, but it's for a completely different figure. So very quickly, we can spread those figures and base the budget on those. What we can also do, and this is useful for modeling your budgets, within here, we can increase or decrease a particular budget by a particular percentage. So for that account line for legal fees, I could bump up those figures by 15% if I wanted to, within a single click. Or I could also quite evenly spread that by the rows that I've currently got. So it might be that I've got more than one row selected within here, and maybe I just want to bump all those figures up by 10%, for example. So I can apply this to a single cell or multiple cells, or I could also apply it to multiple rows as well if I wanted to. So Phocas is very flexible from that perspective and helps move away from that process of entering all this within an Excel spreadsheet and then managing in that way. So let's say, for example, we've entered in all those figures, we've collected a few of those inputs from our various users. It might be that that budget isn't complete yet, and that's fine. At any point within the budgeting cycle, I can very easily just go and publish that data back into the financial statements module if I wanted to. So within here, we haven't quite finished. This might be my budget version 4. It's a draft copy. This is an optimistic view as well. So within here, we can shape, we can model, we can copy, we can clone budgets within here, and then take them off into different directions and then publish that data back into that financial statements area to see that stream comparison. And that's exactly what we're seeing within this drop down here that I mentioned earlier. So within here, we can quite easily add in an optimistic budget that we just published, or maybe we want to look at a 6+6 forecast, a stretch budget, for example, or a particular scenario within here where we've added in a new cost center, maybe we've added in a new warehouse or a branch into the business. And all that data can simply be brought in as another stream. So on top of that base information to be able to collaborate and expedite that process of entering in budgets, what we've also got within here is the ability to take on a three-way forecasting approach. So very much up to now, we've been looking at a profit and loss statement, but there's also no reason why we can't also feed the data from our profit and loss on our balance sheet into a cash flow to then help forecast that data. So within here, what I've got is a tab, a worksheet at the bottom, just like we do with an Excel, that's also got in your current balance sheet figures. So within here, within yellow, as you can see, these have been assigned out. But within here, you can enter and modify that data and budget for the upcoming year just as easily. And then take the data from your profit and loss and from your balance sheet, and then use that then to go and drive what your cash flow is looking like for the upcoming year. So as you'd expect, none of this is editable. All this data is driven from your profit and loss and your balance sheet. Now, what we can also do within here, and a lot of businesses ask this, is the HR department is very much in control of the bonuses, the commissions, the FTE remunerations that they have, and they also want to budget against those. So within Phocas, as a standard feature, you have a headcount tab just sat down here. And the idea is that you could upload or enter in employees within this particular sheet, and then have all that centrally managed within here to help drive those figures within your profit and loss. So by an employee, we can indicate which account links to their bonus and their commission. We can say what region they belong to, which country, based on how we're budgeting within that top level P&L. And then we can also enter in things like salary, bonus, commission, start dates, end dates, and reviews to that as well. And all that's completely configurable within Phocas. Within here, we could quite easily just go and edit what benefit plans look like, what their bonuses are linked to, what those patterns look like. So do you have sort of a gold, silver, and bronze set of benefit plans? Within bronze, do they get national insurance and a staff uniform? Within silver, do they also get gym membership and healthcare on top of that, etc., etc.? So within here, you can quite easily define that. It's a click and drag process. Once you set those up, within the headcount tab, you can then simply just assign those out within here. And all that data that we're entering within here, again, is all collaborative. So by employee, and again, I can select multiples within here if I wanted to, and assign those out. But within here, right down to employee level, we can assign that workflow out, just like we did with the profit and loss statement. So that total figure within there, if I then just jump into my operating expenses within the UK, we can now see that salaries is now driven by that particular line. So there's no individual rows within here. It's all driven in terms of salaries and also in terms of bonus and commission. Let's come down here to bonus. You can see that that's also driven, that particular account, A3094, is also driven by that headcount figure. So that's a really nice way just to keep everything central within Phocas and use this as the one point of truth to then drive those figures. We've also got tools within here to do. I'll just expand out United Kingdom again within here. Maybe you've also got ways that you want to drive that data, or if you've got assumptions within here that you don't want to enter at a cell level, but you want to have driven from a central area within Phocas. So things I'm talking about are sort of the FX rates you might have if you're multi-currency. You also might have freight costs. You also might have a different inflation rate that you want to track across the year. And that applies to some of the accounts, but not others. So within here, what we've got is a manual entry tab down here, which is called assumptions. And again, this is all based on the workflow. You can assign out individual users within here. But the idea is you define exactly what these drivers are called just by simply giving them a name. So ones that I've created previously, inflation in UK. So what does that look like as a percentage for the upcoming year? What's the freight cost looking like? Is that going to spike in July? What duty rates have we got? What's the conversion rate, FX rate into dollars? Are we expecting a big supplier price increase in December? Let's go and add that as a percentage. So within here, what we can do is use those figures that are sat within here that users entered. And then over in here within the main budget, we can then use formula, just like we do with Excel. You simply tap the equals button, click on a particular row, and then you'll have that as a formula that you can then create exactly the same as Excel. And then you just add in the various references, whether that's within headcount, whether that's within a assumptions lookup, whether that's within your balance, entirely up to you. You can then take that data, put it within here within a formula, and then drive your data from that perspective. Now, what we can also do within here, one other feature, is very often we hear from businesses that they have their financial data within here, but they've also got their sales data or maybe their cost of goods. But they'd like that driven more directly from the figures that their purchasing managers are entering or from the figures that their ASMs and their sales reps are entering. Now, that data isn't typically broken down into accounts. That's more likely to be broken down by a sales rep, by a location, by a product group, etc. So one feature we've got within here is what we call a database driver. So this is very much mixing apples with oranges almost. So apples are your profit and loss, oranges are your sales driver. So within here, the data that we're looking at within here is driven from the sales data, maybe invoices that we're pulling from, say, for example, Sage 50. And then within here, instead of breaking them down by a cost center or by a subledger, we're now breaking them down by country, sales rep, a customer, and a product class. So within here, when I expand out UK, we can now see the individual sales reps. And when I expand out world, for example, I can see all of Mr. Walker's customers. And then expand out again within here, we can see the individual products that they're selling. So here's the budget for the upcoming revenue for those individual products. And at any point, you might also really want to break that down to a lower level and say, well, what margin figures am I trying to hit? What's the cost implication of that, etc. So within here, you can have your sales reps contribute towards the budget. And then that total figure that we're taking from here will then drive that top line retail value figure within here as well. So what I've shown you within here is very much sales driven, but there's no reason why you couldn't also have stock drivers within here to drive your current assets within your warehouse as an individual account line. Or maybe your purchasing managers, your buyer admins could also drive your cost of sales from here as well. Have that data split down within here and let them contribute towards it. But probably a key thing to mention at this point is that you don't have to go down to this complex level right from off the bat. You can start off nice and simple, take a top level budget, and then use Phocas as a strategic product to then add that functionality in, and it really help the business grow and add complexity and detail into the budget and become a bit more accurate with your budgets and forecasts. Okay, so within here, what we've got, if I just go back into the main profit and loss, what we've been talking about so far is primarily all around budgets. But at any point, we can take that budget and within a single click, convert that same view and use it as the baseline for our upcoming forecasts. So what I've pre-prepared here is a forecast or a reforecast plan within here. So again, it's exactly the same interface. It's the same structure that we have within our budget. But the key difference within here, as I expand out, still see the account lines, but now what we've got is that view of the actuals being fed into here, and also layered in, we've got our budget. So as we're adding our forecast figures within here, we can see the actual and the budget against each other and how we're tracking against that. So we're up 8% against our property leasings. And we can also see our forecast figures that we're adding in as well. So we're up 5% there. And then if I just scroll to the right here, what we'll see, again, you can see all these figures in yellow. Within here, we can allow users to then on a monthly or a weekly basis contribute towards these forecast figures and help reforecast and model what that upcoming plan is looking like. And again, we can use all those core features within Phocas to then help track and alert us to when we're coming out of kilter with that forecast or any key areas that we might want to jump in on and sort of remedy. So within here, again, just like we're doing with the budget, we can just simply increase that figure. We've got all those copy forward, copy down, and spread functionality that's sat in here too. What we can also do at any point is kind of go back in time. So everything in green here is the upcoming year. We're actually theoretically sat within October 2024 right now. But within here, we could roll forward and see the forecast. What we can also see is the actuals rolling in against that. So if I'm in control of property leases and I'm responsible for the upcoming forecast, at any point I can click on that slider and ask the question, well, what was the forecast looking like for September? Okay, we're at 87K. Scroll forward again. Well, we pretty much on the money there. We're a little bit over in terms of the forecast. It was actually 86K for the actuals. So I can scroll backwards and forwards as I see fit, just to get that picture of how that sort of forecast is evolving over time. We've also got some nice little tools within here that help us sort of snap to the budget that we set previously as well. So we've still got all that spread functionality within here to say, well, I still want to spread that upcoming forecast across the next 6 months. If we're doing a 6+6, I want to say, okay, for the remaining 6 months, spread those figures by 200K, spread it evenly or spread it on working days, just like we can with a budget. What we've also got within here is the ability to snap to a budget. So maybe 6 months ago for the upcoming 12 months, I set a budget of 1.1 million. Now I want that budget to then play out to hit that figure. And within a single click apply, that will then go and change those figures. So we're now following that budget a lot more accurately. So you can see we spread it out so that we're going to hit that budget that we set at the start of the year. What we could also do is say, well, actually, I'm being realistic here. I don't think we are going to hit that budget. What I think is going to actually happen is we're going to follow the actuals that are currently coming in the last 6 months and keep heading on that trajectory. Or maybe you're feeling confident. Actually, we're 17% up on the last budget. I think actually we're going to maybe do better than that. So within here, I could bump that up and say, well, actually, we're going to hit that percentage difference within here. Within a single click, hit apply, and then that data will also be available within here. So again, what we're trying to do here, the key thing is we're trying to get away from Excel using those lookups and those formulas. All of this is within 2 or 3 clicks to get to that data very simply. And again, that process of getting that forecast back into Phocas is very simple. Click on that publish at the end of the month, at the end of the week when you want to reforecast, overwrite the current stream or simply publish to a new one. And then that data is available sat within here as well. So alongside budget and forecast, I could have my 6+6 forecast sat in here and I can view that data as well. Okay, I hope that's given you a good idea of how we can budget against and forecast against our financial set of data. What I'd also like to show you within here is how we can also visualize that data very easily as well. So within here, we were looking at a budget and a forecast. Once we've got that data sat within Phocas, we can lean on the core functionality within the dashboards to then visualize that information and then share it with the rest of the business. So in this case, I focus really in on the sort of the cash flow analysis of the business based on the budgets and the forecasts that I've set up. So within here, I've got some key KPIs. Again, I can drag and drop, move these around or add different KPIs and share with different users in the business. But one of the key views I wanted to show within here, just to show how easy it is, Within here, we could set up maybe a workflow scenario that says, okay, for the cash flow for the next 12 months, we're going to buy a brand new warehouse in July. Show me how that's going to impact on my budget, for my cash flow budget for the upcoming year. So there's the budget running as is. And then in red, you can see what that cash flow forecast is looking like and the big hit within July. I could also say, show me how that's going to impact on our figures if we switch from a direct debit cash collection into a 90-day cash collection pattern. How's that going to impact me from sort of May onwards? So within here, here's how we were going to collect the cash. Here's how the proposed collection or the budget would look like. And then within here, what if we switch to direct debit? How does that impact on my cash flow? And then we can also break that down into the different areas as well in terms of investing, financials, and operating as well. So this is just one very simple example of how you can take that data that your team's contributing towards and then visualize it and get alerted to that data. Now, one other thing I'd like to show you just to wrap things up is we've primarily been talking about that financial view to budget and forecast. What we can also do is take your operational data and also budget and forecast against that. So just like we were publishing in that budget and forecast within our financial data, within here, I could also add in a budget, sales budget for a previous year, an optimistic budget, and have that alongside my sales invoices or my sales orders. So within here, once that's published, I could have sales versus budgets, and then very easily just come in here and then start visualizing that data and see how it compares and how we're tracking against that too. So that method, that approach is very similar to the financial budgeting. Within here, what I've created is a simple cash budget. Across to the next one, actually, let's use this one. So within here, I've got a budget that's broken down by country, by supplier and vendor, and also by the product class. So within here, just like we're doing with the accounts, we can also enter in figures in here, allow our purchasing managers to contribute to what we think we're going to purchase throughout the year, and then have that drive the figures that we've got sat within our cost of goods. What I could also do is then share this maybe also with my financial team. So I want Nicholas to contribute towards what his customers' budgets are looking like or his forecast for the upcoming year so that he can enter the figures within here going forward. And we could also, again, split those down into not only the revenue, the value that he thinks he's going to get from those customers, but we could also base it on the margin that he's expected to make, and then have a look at what that cost of sale looks like. How does that compare to the last year's profit? Are there adjustments that we want to add in here from a very top level? Do we want them to try and hit that 2% figure that we promised at the start of the year? So we can add assumptions again within here. And once we've got that budget or forecast published from an operational sense, within here, we can also visualize that data as well. So this is the kind of dashboard that we might want to share with maybe our sales director or maybe with our buyers administrator for purchases. But within here, you can very quickly and easily filter on that data and see exactly how they're tracking each individual customer or sales rep, how they're tracking against that forecast and that budget that we set previously. So which reps are up? Catherine's doing great. She's 6% up. Which reps are down? So Owen's dropped off by 98% in the last year, for example. And then we can visualize that data, take it down one level, visually see exactly which ones are out of kilter versus sales actuals versus forecast versus budget. And then a bit further down, we can then start tracking against the individual sales reps. So you can see month on month, what's their forecast looking against their actual sales. And how does that look from a product perspective as well? So go right down into individual SKU if you need to see where those differences are coming in. So very quickly within here, if I thought that forecast looks way too high against ASAP metallizing, against that sales there, click on that item, click on focus within the dashboard, and now we can see the overall tracking. How does that seasonally look across the year? And also from a product perspective, what does that breakdown look like as well? So maybe within here, we thought, wow, we've sold a lot of illumination within April. Click on the illumination product, and we can focus a bit further in, and we can see that breakdown at product sub-level or all the way down into SKU level as well. So the idea is within here, you've got those tools for users to come in here, create these dashboards, share them with the rest of the business, while continually feeding in the actuals, the budget, and the forecast into that data, so you can compare and contrast at any time, and really get away from that that process of entering in your Excel sheets, sharing it with the business, manually creating reports. The idea here is log into Phocas, filter on what you're after, prescribe the data to the relevant users in the business, and then they've got those KPIs, those metrics to understand how they're tracking against their budget or their forecast. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show within here. I hope that's been useful. I appreciate within here there's lots of other functionality I could have gone into, but hopefully that sort of paints a picture of the value that's sat within the budgets and forecast module. Okay, if I can hand back to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Pete. As you can see, there's lots within that functionality of that module. And to really get an understanding of what and how it can impact on your business, the best thing to do is let's have a conversation. Let's see exactly what you're looking to address right now, and we'll show you how we can resolve it using our solutions. And of course, the best place to start with that is the team at EBS. So have a conversation with those, and they will be able to sort of facilitate that demonstration going forward. Now, as I mentioned as well, we are more than just our original business intelligence and analytics solution. We are now platform solutions, be it financial statements, budget and forecasting, and also rebates management as well. So if you've got complex rebates, whether it's coming in or going out, we can help you manage that, and we can merge all that fantastic, valuable data from an operational standpoint and a financial standpoint to help you plan better success in your business. There are some fantastic case studies available, which we'd love to share with you as well. So this is one from our mutual customer, Casato, and they say that Phocas is one of the best business tools they've had in over 30 years of business. There are lots of these available on our website. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning part of the call with over 200 customers on Sage. The chances are we could probably put you in touch with somebody who is in your industry, probably working in a very similar sort of business operation, and would be more than happy to provide a reference for Phocas. And of course, we've got comparisons as well. So whilst you are comfortable or currently using Excel, you might be using Power BI or the other products out there in the market. We have gone through the BARC, the Planning Survey 2024, and there's been a full analysis completed by a third party independent of any other source. So please have a look at that information. It's really worth seeing where Phocas excels in terms of ensuring we've got the right product features, where we can ensure the performance is the right level. There's less risk associated with using the software in comparison to those other solutions or providers in the market. And of course, it's all about that return. So let's drive results with Phocas. So how can we improve your operational efficiency? How can we reduce your reliance on IT? How can we increase the speed of reporting? All of these are common points that have been addressed and identified with existing customers, whether it's a 300% increase of reporting speed or an 8% reduction in inventory holding. These savings can be vast and therefore cover the costs associated with the software. And I've mentioned this previously, but it's that bringing that together of that BI and FP&A together for that smarter business decisions. And again, have a look at the BARC software. It compares us and ranks us on those various points. And hand back to Darren. Thank you very much for having us today. If you'd like to have a bit more insight, or you'd like to have a demonstration which is specific to your business, click on the QR code. You can log a request there. Equally, contact the team at EBS. Thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Daniel. Absolutely fantastic. Every time I see this, I can't help but be amazed, and it makes me glad, actually. I'm not a management accountant, I have to say. So, so as I previously said, we'll publish this up to our YouTube channel in a few days' time and send that out to you all. As Daniel said, if you'd like to arrange a one-to-one demonstration, then drop us a line. I will also send out the links to the previous webinars that we did last year. Yeah, as I said, check out our YouTube channel for other videos around Sage and things like cyber resilience as well. But we hope to see you again soon. Thanks for attending. Take care.